You're listening to Insight, a show about metaphysical, paranormal, and spiritual topics. Welcome. I'm Evidential psychic medium Lisa Bousson. Enjoy the show. I am so excited, everybody, to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Heather Evjen. And she is a psychic medium extraordinaire. She's an intuitive life coach and a psychotherapist. Yes, she will get into your head. She is dedicated to bridging the spirit world with that of logic and revealing hidden truths and translating subtle messages into practical and clear guidance. Her unique blend of compassionate listening and spiritual insight is meant to help you navigate life's challenges and embrace your unique path of healing and growth, as well as illuminate your inherent inner wisdom. Hello, Heather.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited to have you on. So Heather, everybody has, as she said, we've been friends for a long, long time. And out of respect, we are also engaged in like a mentorship group or something like that, where we're promoting each other as well as honoring each other as honorable mediums and psychics and practitioners and healers that have integrity and honesty and do good works for the people. So I don't know about you guys, but I like to align myself with those qualities. So here we are. And so I really wanted to use my platform to introduce everyone listening to Heather. And this is because she is that freaking cool. There you go. So you'll see down below the contact info for Heather, all her socials and all that kind of stuff, as well as her email and her website. So I'll mention that again later. So just in case, if you're coming in later. So Heather, what you have a lot of different hats in and out of the arena of the mediumship or the woo-woo metaphysical stuff. So what are the main services, like the main handful that you really that you love because you know that they make a difference in the lives of other people?
Yeah. Well, my background is in psychotherapy, and I've been practicing for over 20 years doing that work. And as part of that work, the psychic mediumship pops in. And as that continued to develop throughout my life, that has become a bigger part of my work as well. So I have an office and make appointments and do all those things, including spiritual journey work, this sort of intuitive life coaching where it integrates spiritual I don't know, orientation, spiritual connections into, practical stuff like how do we make our lives better and with spirit. So, both of those things. I will do individual psychic readings. I will do psychic like group readings. I'll do like private parties, that sort of thing. I do all of those things. And I enjoy that. I enjoy the one-on-one because I really like going deep with people and seeking the meaning and the work. And I'm happy to do, psychic readings for, like I said, a private party and those sorts of things as well.
How exciting. Yeah. That's super exciting. Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
See, it's just like talking to your friend. So, Heather, it was pretty insightful that you were talking about mixing the intuition with your psychotherapy and probably equal and opposite, right? So you offer and lend a different point of view, a different perspective than what many psychic mediums or mediums use. So that's pretty important and pretty exciting in your work, both professionally and professionally. Okay. So that's
Right.
interesting too that you do group readings in people's homes. So that's nice to know. What area, where are you at locally so that if anyone local would like to connect with you, they could do so?
hmm Well, I'm in White Lake, and my office is actually in Pleasant Ridge, which is near Ferndale. I always, this is like the gypsy side, I guess, of me is I'm willing to travel. So I'll travel usually up to an hour or so from where I am. So I'm happy to do that. I will go to people for an individual reading as well. I mean, I have some flexibility in my schedule, so I'm willing to do that. Obviously, my preference is mostly if people were to come to me for individual readings at my office. Sometimes I can do some at home as well.
Okay. And that's in
Yes.
Michigan.
Right in Michigan.
That's
Yeah.
in Michigan. Okay, great, great. So the mentorship, not the mentorship group, but the group that we were talking about earlier, that has our core values intact. We're doing an event called the Mystical Mixer at the Octagon House in Washington Township. What is
Yeah.
your role in that?
I get to do psychometry. And this is kind of where I started playing with psychic mediumship with psychometry. It's a really great place for people to start. And that involves holding a physical object that someone brings that belongs to a loved one. It can be a furry friend or a, scaled friend, or it can be a human, living or past, for it doesn't matter actually, because all things are made of energy. We can pretty much all agree on that, right? And so things carry energy, they carry a charge. So it's always interesting and fun. And I would do this even in like social settings in the beginning. I would play with this because it's fun to play. Where I would hold someone's keys at a party and be like, well, I'm getting this, this, and this. And they're like, oh my gosh, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know how I know, I just know. And I will say the thing. So it can be articles like it could be a watch, it could be a pair of glasses, it could be a stuffed animal, it can be a shirt that someone wore. It can be all kinds of things, but they had to mean something to someone. If you're bringing me
Right.
some chintzy thing from the dollar store that you got on the the dial of put a quarter in and get it, okay, that doesn't carry someone's charge necessarily.
So that's
Um,
fun. It's just
it's a
something
fun
fun
way
to
to
do.
play.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. So thanks for letting the listeners know about that often weird thing. That's I think anybody's capable of doing, but it seems to me like you have perfected that. So that's all
Yeah, and a
wonderful.
part of the history and my background, what I also worked as a dental hygienist for over 22 years.
Oh
So I
gosh.
put my hands on people often. So being physical is part of who I am. That is part of what makes me unique. I'm an Aries, so there's a physicality about me that is real and true. And I know that I am mechanically inclined. I want to feel stuff in with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm comfortable with having a physical object, to hold.
I
So
love that.
spirit will find our way. It'll find its way in, and that just is one way that spirit will come through.
So let me ask you this. Do you find that holding something that's like a textile versus holding something metallic, do you find that there's a resonant differences, or is there a stronger vibration with one or the other?
Well, what I can say is, I the metal objects, wooden objects, things like these, things that are well preserved, will carry energy simply because they've existed longer. If I have a stuffed animal, that carries energy too. It's just that it will break down usually faster, or, if it's
Hmm.
a paper something, that breaks down quicker. So I think that just by the nature of the origin of the material, that it will have there's a density to it, but it doesn't matter to me if it's a hat necessarily versus a metal belt buckle or something,
Okay.
where I can still read those things. So that's my experience of that.
No, I think that's great. That's
Hmm.
great. I never knew that because I was always under the impression that something metal or something like that would hold it, but not in your findings. So I love that it's individual, just like any other type of clair is,
Hmm.
that's it's just per person. And I love
Hmm.
that, right? Everybody
Hmm.
experiences things differently. And it's
Right.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
love that.
right. So tell me, I'm gonna dig deep into your darkest secrets. Yeah. Okay. So tell me, when was your first metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal experience?
Well, I didn't have some like, Hollywood moment when I was a kid. It wasn't like that. What I remember is being little and being in spaces with people and being able to sense things. And no one was talking about what I was experiencing. I just knew that people felt a certain way to me.
Mm,
And I was a quiet kiddo. I was really pretty shy. And if someone were to stand in front of me, I could vibe them, but no one talked about it. You
right.
know, no one said, oh, well, yeah, that vibe on that person, or they've got really good energy. Nowadays, we hear a little more of that lingo. That wasn't the case. And I had old parents who definitely didn't talk that way. But I could feel spirit in my home. I believe was my grandfather. I could feel a male presence in my hallway that was there that felt fine. It didn't feel bad. I've never like really attracted yuck stuff. That's not who I am. And
Hmm.
I won't. And I would vibe places, I would vibe people, and I would just know. I would just know if somebody was a good person, or if they were not, and I needed to repel and be away from them. It was tough because I cried a lot because I was a sensitive kid, because I didn't want to
Hmm.
be around certain people, and I had to find a way to get away from them, and my
Right.
tears were a way to communicate that.
Right.
Sometimes people would listen. Let's put it
Yeah. Yeah. As a child, sometimes people would
right,
listen. Good point.
right, right.
So, what was your, I want to say, turning point
Hmm.
when you
Well,
realized, okay, there's something here?
hmm well, it was my father passed when I was 22 years old, and I started psychotherapy as a client after that. And that led me to going into a group for psychotherapy. I was a client in a group, in a women's group. And um the facilitator of that group, Bets King, if you're out there, I love her and I adore her. She knew so much about women's studies and spirituality and paganism. And we did ritual in that group. It was part of our psychotherapy,
Wow.
but it was also part of just us as women owning our womanness and learning about spirituality and our own psychology as it was informed through that spiritual history with women. So I really resonated with all of that. I was raised in traditional church and all that fun good stuff, but I'm like, hey, we're all the women. And then the women showed up. The universe was like, well, here they are. Look, here's a whole bunch of them. And I made good friends and I learned so many things. And I was in that group for years and years. So it was an introduction into that. That's when I started reading books like Second Sight and,
Oh,
Your
okay.
Sixth Sense and what are all these books? I got exposure to those things. And while I always read horoscopes, I didn't know much about them. But that was one way that I got to like dive deeper. And that's when I started playing with psychometry. Like, have you ever tried psychometry? Ever heard of like, no, what is it? And that's when I started, playing more and reading more. And I've always been an avid reader and always want to
Hmm.
learn new things. So it just boop,
Sure.
boop, boop. Mm-hmm.
Very neat. So, what are your now? Because like this has been years since you've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
What are your current fascinations? Your current, this is so weird. The word that came into my head was species. Like, what the hell is that?
I love it. I love
Time
it.
out.
Right.
Let me start that again.
It's okay. It's actually relevant. You could say that word.
Oh, now that's interesting. Maybe we should
Mhm.
keep it in there. So,
Right.
so Heather, now that you've been doing this work for 20 some years, what is it that you think are your specialties because they just click with you?
Well, well, I haven't been doing psychic mediumship for 20 years, but I've been doing therapy and people work for over 20 years for sure. What I have come to find about how I show up in service of people is that I have a way of helping people make sense of whatever is going on in their world. And so if that means that they're going to be more of that psychology bent, excuse me, or if it is more of that spiritual orientation, if they want a reading, it's like I can help them interpret what the symbols are.
Mm-hmm.
I can help them navigate through all of the muck that shows up with life to look at the essence of what they're meant to understand about themselves so that they're more satisfied in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so it happens through language and by being steady and stable. That's one of my strengths is that I'm steady and consistent and stable. And I can like be airy about let's think about that. Let's talk about that. I'll talk about anything. I always crack up when my people get in my office and they're just like, well, this is TMI. I'm like, oh no, there's no such thing in this room.
Right,
There is no such thing as TMI. There are no off limits topics here. I will talk about all the things. I don't speak on behalf of everyone, I speak on behalf of me.
right.
Let's talk about the nitty gritty. Let's talk about the ugly stuff. Let's get the underbelly of all the things.
Because
And
that's where
believe me, when
healing
I'm
comes
doing,
from. Yeah,
yeah. And believe me, when I'm doing psychic mediumship work and I get downloads and I get images of people's organs and all the body parts, it's fun, right? Like I'm like, look at, okay, what I'm getting now is, and it's like, really kind of fun sometimes. And they're
right.
like, oh, what? And it's valid. It's valid because I'm not scared of all that.
Very
So,
good. So I'm assuming that, you're what you're speaking of right now, anyways, is more like your intuitive life coaching and things like that.
yeah.
And how would because you had talked earlier about being into astrology as well. So how does all that
Mhm.
fit in?
So I certainly have a very strong affinity for astrology, and I'm interested in past life regressions, but I've always kind of been like, all right, what is that? I'm not sure about all of this timeline business, although I know that people have profound healing with that. Also with shamanic journeying, I've been initiated in the rites of the moon key. So however that shows up in my world because I'm nature based. The astrology, I know more than the average bear, although these days, there's so much available online and everything. However, I can look at natal charts and I interweave that into conversations with people because it's relevant to them. It's just another way of a person knowing themselves and
Mm-hmm.
knowing each other. And it's like, well, I know that about, you, then, well, I know this about me. Well, how do those two things come together? And then how do we create as much harmony as possible, even if there are differences or likenesses? So I do astrology from that perspective. And I've done some training with astrology and I really enjoy it. It's interesting to me and I love that. That's a way that I even center in myself, especially if my life goes haywire. I'm like, all right, well, always go back to astrology. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are the stars saying about me today? Is this relevant? Is this not?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to let this
That's
show up?
interesting. Astrology, just like tarot for me, it's too much. It just
Mm,
feels like it's too much memorization or too much knowledge. Just let me just talk to dead people. But I truly am in awe of people like you that can memorize all this stuff and figure that. Oh my god, it's kind of like math.
right, right. And that's part of why I always say to you, I'm not an expert because there is so much. I mean, astrology is huge. There's so much to know about it. I mean, I think because I've, been interested in it for so long that I continue to just pick up pieces and pick up pieces and pick up
Okay,
pieces.
that makes
So
sense.
Yeah, I mean, but I certainly feel comfy talking about all that, and I want to explore that with people, and I certainly utilize it in my own life, but with my clients too.
Good,
So,
good.
however they
You had
show up.
mentioned shamanic journeying. Can you explain that?
It's a fancy meditation. That's basically how I look at it. It just gets, it's spirit coming through us. It just gets packaged differently. They're all, as far as I can tell, we're just like, okay, well, let's get packaged that way for that particular, but there are these universal truths that show up through tarot, through mediumship, through
Ah,
shamanic journey, through astrology, these universal themes that are just present in humanity. So, in my experience of shamanic journeying, it's basically a guided journey, a guided meditation, so that people can connect with specific parts of them. People talk about soul retrieval, which basically means you go revisit an experience you've had, and you, in psychology, right, we reintegrate that part of ourselves, right,
right.
that got fractured off at some time in the past. And you can, certainly, I don't meet your spirit animal and meet a higher self, meet all these things. And it's like guided meditation, basically. And it
Nice.
involves drumming, and I love it, and it's great. It's one version of how I meditate.
Okay. I
Um,
love that. I love that. So, Mike, the next questions are going to be about what do you do for you? So, if
mm.
someone were in your shoes, or can someone emulate what you're doing? So, that's what the next few questions are going to be about. So, what do you do metaphysically or spiritually or holistically every day? What's the one important thing that you've got to do every day?
Well, I do have to pee and drink water often. So
Good thing
you
you do that.
asked. I'm like, all right, but
Again, there's nothing off the table.
right, right. But it's like, but hydration, that is a thing. It
Mhm.
really is a thing. I have to stay hydrated. I drink a ton of water when I'm doing readings, especially, but even throughout my day, it doesn't matter. I have to drink a ton of water. You're like, oh, right here. And Uh, I also do as much as I can. I mean, we live in Michigan, at least so you and I, and so the weather doesn't always cooperate for this. However, I do what I can to walk outside every day.
Mhm.
If I can, I will. Today, whatever, I walked 3 miles. It was whatever. I also, because on those walks, I connect with nature. That is one of the only things that I can say that every single day happens for me. I don't meditate every single day, although I could make an argument that I go on walking meditation.
Yes.
So, and spirit talks to me when I'm walking. So one of my other mentors, she said, she gave us names when we like graduated from her program, and she said your name. She goes, I kept asking, and your name is Heather who walks with feathers. And it is accurate because it has always happened to me. That's part of why I wear my feather, often, because feathers show up in as validation that I'm on my path.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
find a ton of feathers. I find them. I'll be listening to an audiobook or a podcast, and specific words will be happening, and I will see feathers right in front of me. I have to go way over there to get it. No, it's right here. And so I'm like, oh, what I've learned is that I pick the feather up and I listen to what was actually happening, either in the story, in the podcast, in the audiobook that I'm learning something from, because there's something relevant in there that resonates with my soul. There is a message that comes with those feathers. And birds are often, hawk spirit is with me often, in creatures. I'll see turkey, I'll see deer, I'll see a frog, a turtle, or whatever.
Hmm.
So I've always loved nature. So spirit says you love nature, good, because then I'm gonna talk. That's an easy in. It's an easy in. Also, dreaming is something that I've been very much more committed to in probably the last couple years, specifically, where I will write my dreams down. And it's like the crazy wild stuff, like I'm like, I have no idea who this human is. I don't know what this thing means. I just write it down. No judgment. I don't try to interpret it. I just write all details that I can down because oftentimes they're precognitive. They could be about my life. They could be about something. It could be time way in the future. It could be a couple weeks out. So tracking my dreams, that sort of thing. Reading my astrology every day. Like it helps
You
me
know,
like go get centered.
it's interesting. You're talking about the feathers and looking at nature, and now you're talking about the
Mm.
dreams. You sound very Native American.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
can't claim that. I just am so grateful that the culture exists and I can like see, I'm like, oh, that resonates with me. I understand and relate
right,
to this. Right.
right,
Yeah.
right. So not, of
Right.
course, everybody needs to do dreaming, or because you know what, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of not just ancestral, but oh God, so many things come through in my dreams, like murder
Mhm.
victims and stuff like that. And so it's not always a great thing. But then a
Mhm.
lot of times, spirit loved ones will start coming through in the dream state before they come into their reading during the day, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so the
Mhm.
dreams can be so important. So you journal them. So how many journals do you have, Heather?
Right, right. Right. And my dream journals are those are I have fewer of those because I've only been really more committed the last couple of years of writing. I have another that's a good segue, right? Another way that I center and stay grounded is journaling. I
Mhm.
just personally journal. Spirit realized that it is something I've journaled since I was in sixth grade. I not every single day. There are times in my life where I have done it every single day because it's necessary. Because I'm going through a thing where I'm having epiphanies. It is a conversation with myself. It starts out, I did this, I said that, blah blah blah, or something else. It might be something going on in my life, very mundane, and it will turn into what some people call automatic writing.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In spirit, well, things will be, I will write things that I'm not contemplating. I'm not actively choosing to write. I'm like, I just know I need to write this sentence down because it makes sense. And
Mhm.
thankfully for me, I'm also able to do that then when I'm in conversation with people. I just allow the language to come through me and then it's there. And that's part of when I do readings, I'll bring up my notebook and I scribble and I'll do sketches and stuff because spirit knows this is an easy way for me to do it. I mean, I might have, funky arthritis and crap in my finger because of it, but I don't care.
Exactly. So do you notice that when you do your scribbling or drawings or whatever, when you're doing a reading, does it often pertain to your client, the drawings?
Oh, certainly. Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. I'll get symbols and things and because that's how I take in the world. I just take it in and it will be a piece of I don't know, a part of a car. It might be a flower, a specific flower. They're like these little snaps of those things. And I might get that in a reading and I will scribble that down. I'm like, do you understand what this symbol is? They're like, oh my God, that's on the back of my dad. It's a tattoo or something. Who knows,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah, I ask that because it happens to me oftentimes where I just sit there and doodle and I'll do the same thing. So it's interesting that you do that as well.
Oh,
Very
for sure.
cool. Very cool. So as a takeaway,
Mhm.
if you were to share something with anyone who's listening to this podcast, what would it
Mm.
be?
I really, really wish that people would know how to trust themselves.
That's a hard one.
It really is one of those things where we are constantly being fed information and especially nowadays, right? There's something that's coming in front of us constantly to try to like bombard us. This is who you are. This is what you're about. This is who you are.
Mm,
This is what you're about. And we can very easily get lost in the sea of all of that in while these crashing waves of information come at us every single day, it's like learn how to center, practice remembering who you are and what
Oh,
you've promised to do and be in this life. There will always be that. There's literally a storm happening as we're having this conversation where I
mm-hmm.
am, and
Yes,
yet we have we're like dialed in and centered as we do this. Is all that's going on? That's nature doing it, let alone
mm-hmm.
all the other, created, man created
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
Exactly. That's
So
great.
yeah,
I really think
yeah.
that's wonderful. And you're right, because we are being bombarded by so much, social media and the news and oh my God, the
Hmm.
politics and, whatever else is out there, family obligations or whatever.
Hmm.
And sometimes we get so, and half the time we think we have to be a specific way because social media tells us we have to be that way,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Oh, for
Smart, rich,
sure.
skinny, good looking,
Yeah.
whatever. I cannot tell
Right.
you over the last, oh my God, maybe in the last week, how many times I watched something about women's wrinkles. Are you
Oh,
kidding me? Like,
came
have you
through. Huh?
seen? Maybe they're trying to give me a clue, Heather. Like, look at these crow's feet
Listen.
right here, my dollies, right?
Right.
So, in someone who would not have said, back off, they'd be so
Hmm.
worried about something as simple as a wrinkle. You know what I mean? It's obviously that's a
Sure.
simplistic point of view, but
Sure. But right,
with
being
it,
mindful about what you're being influenced by, right? Like,
exactly
is that your truth or is that somebody else's?
right.
And figuring out your own barometer, whatever that feels like, if it's a sense inside your body, if it's a knowing that you have, right? These are these skills that we, as psychic mediums, intuitives, like work on honing. Let me sense the world wholly through me, and how
Yes.
does it affect me, and move from there. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree.
Mhm.
So trust yourself, just like you said earlier.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
To know
Yeah.
yourself. You know what?
Hmm.
Everybody, I think we all innately know ourselves, but you're right. We don't trust it.
Hmm.
We know what we
Right.
like.
And
We
that,
know what we don't like. We know what fits and what doesn't fit. But do you
mm-hmm.
allow outside influences to do just that?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
tell us your Facebook handle, your website, anything else that you'd like us to share or us to know.
Oh, to connect. Well, my website is simply heatherevjen.com. And I'm on Facebook as Heather Evjen, Intuitive Life Coach. I don't have other socials very much on purpose. Please see the previous conversation. I try to minimize my exposure to some of those things. Not that I'm anti that. It's just that I do what it's just, I know how it affects me. So therefore
Yes,
I'm, do my best
yes,
to keep away from it. And yeah, and I'm on the Psychology Today website, just heatherevjen.com. So for all of
nice.
those things too. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. Is there anything else that you think the listeners need to know?
What you saw today is pretty much me. I mean, aside from sometimes I get like Lisa and I'm a little potty mouth and I swear, it just depends on who's in front of me. So if that's, I can dial it in mostly, but I'm not. I'm a bit of a rebel
Mostly. Okay.
in some ways, but other than that, no. I love what I do. I am so grateful every day that I get to connect with people on a real level, and this is what I've wanted to do and be my whole life. I'm small talk is grating on my soul. I can do it. That doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means that's not where I love to be. I want to get in the nitty gritty, and I love meeting new people. I love getting to know people. I love to see people know themselves. I just adore it, and I'm so grateful that I get to do the work that I do. So
Isn't
thanks,
it
Lisa,
great?
for this today.
It's great. Heather, thank you so much. I
Yay,
was
thank
just, it was a
you.
joy talking to you. You're just so insightful and so real. I love it.
Thank you.
I
Thank you so
love it.
much for having
All
me.
right. You're welcome. Take care, my
Okay.
dear.
Take care of you. See you.